Hi, this is Shalimar Steinberg, and today we're working on a video for the step-by-step of our section and hatch drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. So if you look over here at Moodle, we've got the example of what our drawing is supposed to look like. And it's showing us the front section view, which shows us the internal holes that are going through. Our top view with the cutting plane right here, and our side view. We have the instructions here which tell us that we're going to start by downloading the ab.dwg title block because we'll need the B-size template. And under the big A, drawing utilities, we're going to go up here to drawing utilities and units. You can also get to this just by typing units at the command bar. And it's going to open the options here. And if we look, we're doing decimal inch with the precision to 3 zeros after the decimal. So we're going to go decimal, 3 zeros, and we're going to change unit list to inches. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. Then we're going to go in and create 2 new layers to start with. And I'm going to go to the Layer Properties Manager. And so I'm going to go in, and one of them I'm going to do off of the oh, and it looks like my center lines are set incorrectly. I need to get those to the default thickness. And the hidden lines are the same thing here. Let me fix those real quick. The only ones that should be thick are the object lines and the cutting plane. So, and then my object lines, I'm going to go Alright, so I'm going to base 1 off of my object lines, and remember this is the new layer button, and I'm going to call that one cutting plane because I want it to be the thick line. And I'm going to pick a color. In this case I'm going to pick magenta because I'm not using that for anything else right now. And I'm going to leave that I'm going to change that from continuous to phantom line type. I'm going to go to this one right here and say OK. And then I'm going to go up to my dimension line layer, and I'm going to use that as the basis for my hatching layer. So I'm going to call that one hatch. And I'm going to pick the color. I'm just going to leave that one white so that it matches the object layer, but you can pick a different color if you want to. We are going to leave that continuous and default thickness. Okay, so now I have both of my new layers created as per the instructions. Next, I'm going to create my new dimension style. I'm going to go to Annotate, and under the Dimension section, I'm going to open up the Dimension Style Manager, and I'm going to tell it New, based off of the standard, and I'm going to name it M for Mechanical, and then Arial, because that's the font that I want to use, and P3 for the 3 precision. So continue, it opens up, and I want to make sure that there are a few things. So I'm going to go to the text section, and I'm going to pick Arial, and I'm going to change the size of the text to the 0.125, and I'm going to make sure that it is still horizontal. That's good. Then I'm going to go to the symbols and arrows section, make sure I have the closed filled symbols and arrows, and change those to 0.125 as well. I'm also going to turn off the center marks. I don't need those to show because I'm going to be putting in center lines. And I'm going to go to the primary units and make them match up with the units that I set. So 3 degrees of precision, and I'm going to turn off the leading zeros. Okay, that should be all I need to do. Then I'm going to say set current and close my dimension style. Now I'll go back to my home tab, and this is where I can go ahead and get into drawing my 3 views. So I'm going to switch over to my example drawing so that I have all my measurements, and I'm going to start with drawing the front view. I will draw most of it except for this groove, and then I will draw the top view and use the circles to draw down where the circles are here, and then this measurement will tell me from the center of that circle over how deep this groove goes. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to make sure I'm on my object line layer. And I'm going to be using some construction lines for this as well, because they're just going to help me in making sure that I have things lined up well and so forth. So as far as the overall length of the front view or the top view of this object, they're the same. And I know that length because I know that to the center of this circle, which is also this big circle, is 4.5. And then the radius of the circle, so from the center to the edge, is 1.5. So that gives me 6 inches total, which I know is the total length. So I'm going to get into the line command, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to draw at 0 degrees over 6 inches. And hit enter. And you'll notice it looks like I haven't drawn anything, but it's because of that I was way zoomed out. So when I zoom in, I can then see where it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to draw my line straight up. And if I look here, I know that it's 0.937 and 0.188 together for the total height of this little section right here. And so that I can make sure that I get those correct, I'm just going to draw them as 2 line segments instead of trying to figure out the math. And that's just for an ease and speed thing. So I'm going to do straight up again. And that was 0.937, I believe. And then an additional 0.188. Now I'm going to start out by drawing this as a 90-degree angle, and then I'll use the fillet command to square it off. So that way I know for sure that it's the right length. And I know that that length is 3.125. So 3.125. And then I'm going to go up the rest of my height, which I can figure out from the height of all 3 of these added together. So at this point, I'm actually going to end this line, and instead of going to do the calculations, I'll start again over here, and I'll draw 0.688, and then another 0.750. And a final 0.75. And this is helpful because then I have the line in the middle as well that I can use for centering things. Then I'm going to go over until I meet up with this using my object snap detection, and go to right here and close off my shape. Now at this point, I'm able to go ahead and do that rounding curve. So I'll do the fillet command, which remember is over here in the modify commands. And I'm going to click on fillet. I'm going to tell it first the radius that I want, which is going to be the 0.5. And then the first line and second line that I want to click on. And it gives me that nice curve that I need. At this point, I can go ahead and start to draw in the upper shape. And for that, I'm going to get onto the construction layer for a second so that I can draw some lines in that are going to help me with spacing. So I'm going to go ahead and draw up, and I'm just going to pick a height that is about as far away as I want to put it so that I have enough room for my dimensions. So I'm going to say 1.5. And I'll do another one. Actually, what I'm going to do is do the imaginary box to finish off this rectangle shape, because I can use that for my miter line in just a minute. And then I'll draw one from here up, another 1.5. And I will also draw from here over 1.5 so that my side view will be spaced the same distance away. And remember that these construction lines will just get turned off when I don't need them anymore. 1.5. And at this point, I'll go back to my object line layer. And right here. Then I will go in and go to the line command. And I'm going to start over here. And I'm going to go this direction. And I know that the distance to the center of that big circle again is 4.5. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. And then I will draw up the edge here, the height that I know it to be, which is that I know this section is 0.5 and this section is 0.5. And then the radius of this circle is 1, which means that if we multiply that by 2, we get the 2 inches that would be here. So our total length is going to be 3 inches. And I'm going to draw that in the stages because I'll need to remove the center at some point. So I'm going to do 0.5 and then 2 and 0.5 again. Oops, I looped back down on myself with that one. So I'm going to delete that one and go to the end of my 2. Alright, now I can draw over the distance that is the same, so that 4.5, and I'm going to use just a temporary line, or I could do a construction line here for centering my circle on. And I'm going to make sure that I have my midpoint O-snap turned on, which I do, and it should be good now. So I'm going to go into the circle, and I am going to use the radius because I know that's how big I want my circle to be. I'm going to choose this as the center point, and I'll click right there, and then I'm going to specify my radius as that 1.5. And I get the large circle that I want, and you can tell because if you continued the yellow line up, they would match up there. At this point, I can then use the trim command, and I'm going to tell it to select all for cutting edges, and I can trim out that portion of the circle that I don't need. I'm also at this point going to put in my diameter circle for the smaller circle right here, and that is a diameter of 1. And then I'm going to put in the circle that's at the back here, and that is a radius of 1 as well. And I need to put in my 2 smaller circles here, and I know that from the end piece over is 1.85, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw another temporary line, and I'm hovering there and dragging over, and I'm going to type 1.85 and just draw a line straight down so that I have that midpoint. Don't let it snap to that center. Zoom in a little bit if you need to so that it goes straight down. And if you need to, you can just drag it through a little bit and make sure that it stays at the 90 degrees. And then I want to just back it up so that I have the midpoint of that line easily accessible. There we go. Now I'm going to go in and again do my circles and do a diameter on these ones. So my first one's going to be on that midpoint, and it is going to be the 0.563. And then another one, and it will be the same center point and the 0.875. Alright, so at this point I can remove these 2 lines. And I'm going to trim out the section that I don't need of this circle here. I'm going to leave the line for now for centering my center line, or my cutting plate, sorry. But I will come back and fix that later when I need to. And then at this point, I'm going to go back to my construction line layer, and I'm going to go ahead and start tracing down the edges of my circles. So I will switch over to the quadrant O-snap, and I'm just going to draw down with lines where the outside edges of my circles are. And I'm doing this so that I can then transfer those circles down and make sure that they're lined up correctly. If I try to just do it with the measurements, a lot of times things end up misaligned or slightly off from where they should be, and it can be quite annoying. So this gives me kind of a surety that I have all the pieces that I needed on there. And it's also going to let me, if I want to, I can use the center point of this line to draw a construction line to show me this measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as well at this point. So I'm just going to go from there straight down. Okay, now I'm going to switch back to my object lines. And at this point I can do the solid lines for the two edges of my circles there, but more importantly I can figure out how deeply that groove goes. So I'm going to do the lines for that from the endpoints of the shorter section that I drew earlier, and I know that it goes to the center point of this circle right here, and then from there it goes back an additional 6.25. So I'll draw it this way and do 0.625. And then I know that it goes down 0.75. And just to check that I'm lining up with the edge that I think I should be, I go here and make sure, and yes, they line up just right. Now I can go ahead and delete this little section right here, and I've got my groove drawn. And I'm going to go ahead and take out this piece so that I don't get confused about which line are the outsides of my circles. Now I can go in and draw my solid lines here to represent the two edges of the circle that go through the grooves. And I'm not going to draw them through this part because this is the part where the groove is that the circles don't exist in, but I am going to draw them again through the bottom part here because this part is cut through. Then I'm going to do the circle, or the solid line from where the arc comes down here, or the semicircle. And finally, I'm going to do the ones for my outsides of the other circle here. And I'll have to do some trimming on these once I know from the side view how deep the sections are and so forth. So then I've got all of the vertical portions of this drawing done, and now I can go ahead and delete these if I want. And that's just because we're going to do the side ones in our next video, which will be in just a second, and it could get a little bit confusing with a lot of lines on there. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this, or stop this video here, and start recording in a second.